Evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Anderson, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Kelly.
My sobriety date is December 12th of 2012. I am sponsored, and by that I mean I'm actively sponsored. I talk to my sponsor twice a week. I am in meetings twice a week, and I'm a part of my home group. I sponsor other women. And I love my home group. So you guys are the primary purpose too, but you know, mine's better. Anyway, we meet every Monday and Thursday night, so my home group is also meeting tonight. I was brought up, the only reason I can miss my home group is if I'm speaking at some other home group, so that's why I'm missing it tonight. Monday nights we study the Big Book or the 12 and 12. If there is a fifth Monday, we study history of AA. We don't want to forget the mistakes of our past or repeat them. And Thursday night we always have an open speaker meeting, just like you guys. So if you're ever in Wilson, I don't know why you would be, but if you are, come join us. We meet at 7 o'clock from 7 to 8. And in a minute here, I'm going to start shaking like a leaf. Stop shaking like a leaf, and God is going to step in, and I'm just going to start. He's going to start talking, and I'll get out of the way, get out of my own way. I think that's all for the housekeeping. I said my name and my sobriety date and my home group, and I think that's it. I'm going to qualify for a few minutes, and I hope tonight to be sober longer than I am drunk. I prayed last night before I came up here, and I prayed this morning, and I prayed some more on the way up here, and I prayed before I got up here, and I prayed most of the day today for God to guide me and help me to carry the message. And, you know, my sponsor always says, it's your story, you can't tell it wrong, and just be honest. And Steve told me earlier, just try to be honest. Try to do that anyway today, but anyway. You know, that's not in my nature, to be honest. But I do try to do that today. I try to do the opposite of what I used to do. And that has seemed to work for me. You know, I grew up in the rural part of the Pocono Mountains, and there really was nothing else to do but hang out in the woods and drink. So that's pretty much what I did. I started drinking at a very young age. My home life was chaotic. I'm not allowed to take my mother's inventory, but let's just say she drank a lot. And I found her on the bathroom floor more times than I can count. Grew up in a lot of chaos and a lot of drinking, and that was just normal behavior. So at the age of 8 years old, I saw everybody drinking and having a good time and thought that was normal behavior. So I took my first drink at 8 years old. Nothing happened. But I did gain the nickname Swizzle Stick. We have a pretty mixed crowd in here, so some of you may know what a swizzle stick is. Some of you may not. A swizzle stick in the Poconos was one of the little straws that you used to stir a drink. And I would take the straw, and if you put your finger over the top of the straw and put it in a drink, it will suck up some of the drink. And I figured out if I did that and then put the straw in my mouth and let go of the straw, that the drink would go in my mouth. And I figured that out, and so I would go around to everybody's drink and do that. And so by the end of the night, I had a good buzz going, and so I gained the name Swizzle Stick through that. At the age of 10, I took the first drink that I took intentionally to try to get the feeling that everyone else around me had. By the age of 14, I was drinking every day, going to school with vodka in a cup. And back then, They didn't check you like they do now. And the principal didn't call you down to the office for every little thing. So nobody really noticed. And I was kind of a loner anyway. I didn't get involved with all the after-school activities and stuff like that. We were pretty poor growing up, so I didn't have the cool clothes and the cool haircuts and all the cool stuff. And I wasn't a cheerleader, and I didn't play sports. And I was clumsy then, and I'm clumsy now. So I told Daniel on the way up here, I was like, I'm not walking up the steps in these heels because it's been a while since I wore heels. I'm more comfortable in jeans and cowboy boots. So I'm just not very graceful. So anyway. I wasn't then either, and I was comfortable in a Metallica shirt, a pair of jeans, and sneakers, and so I just wanted you to leave me alone and let me drink the way I wanted to, and so that's how I went through high school. I was not very personable. I was not fun to be around. I just wanted you to stay away from me, and I did everything I could to make you stay away from me. I was bullied a lot, and so, I was not a nice person. I hung out with people like me who liked to drink and party and just get wasted. My goal was never to socially drink. My goal was to get drunk, pass out, black out, whatever got me numb. There's a lot of abuse in my life, various kinds. I won't go into that. I'm not going to do a fifth step up here. But what I will tell you is it affected my emotional health, my physical health, and my psychological health. And so combine all those and you have a wonderful alcoholic. So, I just shut down. And my goal was to be numb. And so that was what I did. There are other substances in my story. Out of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous, I will not talk about those from the podium. If you'd like to talk to me after the meeting, I'd be glad to talk to you about those. Went all the way through high school drinking and other things. That was the only coping mechanism I had. That was how I learned how to deal with you, how to deal with problems, how to be happy, how to be sad, how to feel any kind of emotion. Was not feeling it. I just went through life not feeling. And that worked for me. So as long as I didn't have to feel it, I didn't have to deal with it. So all the way through high school, I went to school with the same people, so I knew how to deal with those people. I knew what they expected, what they didn't expect. I knew how to deal with them. I knew where to get the stuff I needed. I knew where to get the alcohol I needed. I knew where I could drink safely. I would go in the woods. Most people don't feel comfortable in the woods. That was my safe place. That is where I would go and hang out for hours. In the dark. I would sit in the woods in the dark by myself and was perfectly comfortable with that. That's just what I did. And so I spent a lot of time in the woods drunk and would sleep there. Because that's just what I like to do. Halfway through my junior year in high school, my mom decided, hey, we're going to move to North Carolina. And so we packed up and moved to North Carolina. I hated it here. I did not want to be here. If you want to really make your child angry, pack them up halfway through their junior year in high school where they know everybody they've gone to school with their entire life and move them to Wilson, North Carolina. In the middle of nowhere where everything is perfectly flat. Everything around you is fields. And there are people that are big and country and not like what you're used to. And so it was a huge culture shock for me. And I don't like change. I like to be where I know what to expect, where I know what's coming, where I know where I can get my stuff, where I know how to deal with people, what they expect of me. you know, what I need to do to keep you happy, to keep you out of my hair, you know, and what I need to do. So I was very unhappy. So as soon as I got the chance, after my senior year was over, I went back to Pennsylvania and back to the guy I was dating before I left. Stayed with my sister over the summer. And when summer came to the end, I decided I was not coming back to North Carolina, much to my mother's dismay. And so I took off and ran away with said guy. And he locked me in a trailer, wouldn't let me leave, threatened to kill himself. And I believed him. And so I missed the first half of my senior year and terrified my mother and my dad and my daddy. And, you know, didn't even think about how they would feel, you know, what that was doing to them. Had no regard. That's how selfish and self-centered I was. And so I finally got away from him and called them to come get me, and they did. And still, I wanted to stay in Pennsylvania. You know, I didn't want to go back to North Carolina with them. Well, my mother wasn't hearing it. Once she got something in her head, she was not going to change her mind. And so back to North Carolina I came. The only thing she wanted from me was for me to finish my senior year. And through the help of my science teacher at the time, who I'm still very close to, and my guidance counselor, we managed to get me through my senior year in high school, and I graduated on time. I have found that we alcoholics are very determined people. When we decide we're going to do something, we do it. And I'm the type of alcoholic, I'm going to do something either 150% or not at all. You know, I'm not going to middle of the road anything. I'm either going to do it all the way or not at all. So that's what I did, and I graduated on time. Continued to drink, continued to do what I wanted to do, but I did manage to graduate. I got out of school and got a job, and again gravitated toward the people that I knew drank like me, hung out like me, partied like me. And so I just continued to do what I always did. I met my husband in 1994. He was in law enforcement. So the illegal stuff that I was doing kind of had to stop. And so I started drinking more. And my penchants for prescription pills kind of increased a lot too. And so he had 2 children from a previous marriage who were 9 and 12 at the time. And I don't know if you've got children. You obviously do. Wait until he's about 13. That's a wonderful age. It's even more wonderful when you plan to be a step parent. It's fun. It's great. So I had the best role model of step parenting you could possibly have. My daddy. You'll hear me reference my daddy and my dad. Okay, my dad is my biological dad who loves me to pieces, and I love him, but we didn't have a relationship when I was younger. He was in the military, he was in the Marine Corps, and he was gone most of my childhood. My daddy met my mom when I was 4 years old. She had multiple boyfriends prior to him, who I did not like. And so when she met him, he was amazing. And he was the daddy he didn't have to be for me. And she met him when I was 4 and married him when I was 6. And he was amazing. And he was the kind of step parent I wanted to be. He was He was kind, and he was loving, and he was patient. And he was the one who taught me how to hug somebody and tell them I love them. It was not my mom, it was him. And so, when I met these two girls, I was bound and determined that I was going to be the best stepmom ever. And that these two girls were going to love me, and I was going to be the greatest, and they were just going to fall in love with me, and we were going to live happily ever after. They had different ideas. They did not see it that way. And despite my best efforts, and despite me reassuring them that I was not trying to intrude and not trying to be their mom, that I just wanted to share in their lives, they were 9 and 12. And as they grew older, they grew more resentful toward me. And I grew more, I guess, resentful toward them because they would not love me the way I wanted them to love me. And so my drinking increased. And my anger increased. And I was already full of rage. Just full of anger and resentment and rage. And so as my drinking increased, so did my rage. And the more I drank, the angrier I got. And my poor husband, we got married in 1996. And the longer we were together, the more these girls realized she's not going anywhere. And so the harder it got. And so we... my husband and I were always on the same page as far as discipline was concerned, and they didn't like that. And so they tried to play mom against dad, and I'd get stuck in the middle, and it was just a lot of more chaos. And so my drinking increased exponentially, and it got really bad. And they both quit school and stopped coming around. And so things kind of calmed down. But my drinking did not change. And so my husband would occasionally mention, maybe you need to get some help. Maybe you need some counseling. And so I'd go to counseling and I'd tell him part of the truth. You know, how much are you drinking? A few beers. And meanwhile, I'm drinking a pint or half gallon. You know, it depended on what was going on at the time. Supplementing, you know, this or that, you know. And so, you know, it's just getting progressively worse. In 2000, my oldest stepdaughter got pregnant and had a child. And she decided she didn't want to be mom. And so social services placed the child with us. So we had my daughter from 2 months old till now, and she will be 22 next month. And there was a lot of social services involved and a lot more chaos, and so I continued to drink. And in 2004, it had gotten to the point where I was drinking every night and taking a lot of barbiturates and passing out every night. It was, my MO was get up, go to work in the morning, take something to get through the day, get home at night, drink a half gallon of wine or almost a fifth of vodka and throw up, pass out. And I would always end up on the bathroom floor. And every time prior to this particular night, my husband would make sure that my daughter, who was 3 at the time, would not see that. Every time prior to this particular night, my husband would clean me up, put me to bed. My husband is 6'2", about 220, law enforcement. And I was so full of rage that I would sail on him in a heartbeat. And he would just do like this. He never laid his hands on me. But I would hit him. I would throw things at him. I painted my house after I got sober the first time, and there are multiple places in my house that I had to repair plaster where I had thrown something at him. There are multiple places in my kitchen, in my cabinets, where I threw chairs at him, and there's dents in my cabinet, and my cabinets are solid wood because our house was built in 1953. So when I say plaster and wood, I mean plaster walls and wood. It's not like the sheetrock or anything. It's straight up real stuff. And so, it took some force. So he was very tolerant and patient of my antics, to put it mildly. And by 2004, I was in rare form most nights. And this particular night, he had had enough. And he had said to me multiple times, maybe you need to go to rehab. And I would look straight at him and say, I'm not going. My child needs me. And I had not realized yet that I was not there for her to begin with. I was not present. I was not able to be there for her. And because I was drunk all the time. I was passed out on the floor. I'd come home from work and she'd want to play or whatever, and I'd give her maybe an hour. And then I was busy doing other stuff. I was busy drinking. I didn't have time for that. So my husband would bathe her and put her to bed and all that stuff. So I was no kind of mother. So my husband had had enough that particular night, and I was laying on the bathroom floor, and I was sick, and my bathroom floor is tile. And if any of you have ever laid on a tile floor after vomiting violently for several hours, it's nice and cool. And so I would lay on the tile floor where it was nice and cool and usually fall asleep there until I had to vomit again, and then I'd wake up and, same thing. And so I had woken up and looked up, and my 3-year-old is standing in the doorway looking at me crying, wanting to know, Mommy, what's wrong? Mommy, what's wrong? And I had a sort of spiritual awakening that night. We have a spiritual awakening when we have that first drink that really just, gives you that sense of ease and comfort that we read about in our big book. That sense of finally feeling like we fit somewhere. That sense of finally being able to deal with people on their level. Feeling like we can deal with people on their, on their plane, finally. And I finally, I was like, I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, I turned into my mother. The one thing I never wanted to be. The one thing I promised myself I would never be, that I would never do, is make my child pick me up off the bathroom floor. Make my child have to clean me up and put me to bed. And here I am on the bathroom floor. And so I got up off the floor and I put her back to bed, and I walked in the living room, and my husband was sitting on the couch, and he's just looking at me, just disgusted with me. And I looked at him and I said, I'm ready. And he knew exactly what I meant. And it was 10 o'clock at night. And so the next morning, 6:30, he's on the phone. We got to get her in rehab, right now, because if she changes her mind, we're in trouble because you won't go, And so he called Wilmington Treatment Center, and they didn't have a bed available. And he was like, well, I'm just going to tell you, I'm on my way with her. So we're going to stay up there. Because I had told him, I said, if I don't go right now, I won't go. I know I won't go. And so we headed to Wilmington, and I spent the night in the hotel, wrapped in his arms, just crying. And I cried all night long. And so the next morning they called, and they said, we have a bed. And so off I went to rehab, and I was terrified. I was terrified, y'all. I didn't know what to expect, because my idea of rehab was like under the bridge, kind of drunks, standing around a burn barrel, and I was like, oh my God. And when I got there, it was like, there's a lot of young people, and a lot of people just like me, and a lot of women, and a lot of young women, mothers, and a lot of people who stood around a barrel. And I found out that those people, I wasn't any different than those people. The only difference between them and me was a few years. And I was talking to one of my sponsees the other day. She's new in the program, and I said, after I thought about it, I thought, the only reason I wasn't standing around a barrel wasn't because of anything I had done. I was like, I still got. When I looked at step one, I had no problem with the powerlessness. So I was like, yeah, I'm powerless. I know I can't drink responsibly. I know I can't just drink one. I don't know what the outcome's going to be if I just start drinking. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to end up in a blackout. I know that because that always happened. But I don't know where I'm going to end up. So absolutely, I'm powerless. But the dash, here on that side, there's a dash in step one. And after that dash, it says that our lives have become unmanageable. I had a problem with that. Because I still had the house and the car and the husband and the children. I'm not unmanageable. There's nothing unmanageable about this. Nothing. Just because I'm laying on the floor in the middle of the day, drunk at 10 o'clock in the morning. What? Everybody does that. No, they don't. No, they don't. And so a few years after I got sober, I was like, the only reason I wasn't around that burn barrel wasn't because of anything I had done. It was because of my husband. Because had it not been for him paying the bills and making sure I had gas in the car and making sure I had food, and he was just before putting my stuff on the porch, y'all. He was right at that point where he was just like, I'm just done with you. I had pushed him to that point. So that was August 17th of 2004, the first time I got sober. And unfortunately, you will remember that my sobriety date is December 12th of 2012. Because I did not learn. I'm one of those people who thinks, I got this. So fast forward, I came out of rehab the first time and I was on fire for AA. And I stayed sober for 4 years and I was in AA. I was doing the deal. I was going to home group and I was doing everything I was supposed to do. I had a sponsor. I was sponsoring women. I was going to my meetings. And in 2008, my daddy died. And I was brought up in AA to believe that when bad stuff happens, that your home group rallies around you and they show up for you. And when my daddy died, nobody showed up. And so, the alcoholic that I am, I caught a resentment. And it took about a month or two before I completely left AA. But I had a job that I was working 12 and 14 hours a day, and so I used that as an excuse. And my husband, bless his heart, he didn't know any better, and he was like, okay, if you think you got it, okay. And so I stopped going to meetings. And then I stopped talking to my sponsor. And then I stopped talking to God. And when I stopped talking to God, bad things happen. And it took me 4 more years to drink. But it happened. And what I will tell you is this. My experience with that is I didn't drink during those 4 months. I stayed sober for 8 years. But those last 4 years were miserable. I was sober, but I wasn't sober. I was a dry drunk. I was miserable to be around. I was unhappy. I wasn't praying. I had turned my back on God. I didn't want. I was ashamed. I was ashamed of myself. And so what I will share with you is this. If you catch a resentment against your group, against a person in your group, and you get angry or whatever, please don't stop coming. There are so many groups out there. Please don't stop coming. Find another group. Find a different sponsor. Find whatever you need to find. Stay in the program. Stay connected. Because I am living proof. If you stop doing what we're supposed to be doing, it may not happen immediately. It may not happen in a year. It may not happen in 4 years. But I'm telling you, it'll happen. Please don't stop coming. I did. And in 2012, in June, I was working for a financial planning company, and we had a conference in Vegas. And first of all, don't let anybody ever tell you that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It does not. It comes home with you. And so we went to Vegas and on a conference, and my husband went with me, and it was me and my boss and his wife and a couple other people, and so we go to Vegas, and everything's cool, copacetic, and we're good to go. And I get down there, and my husband goes to Arizona to visit some friends of ours. And so we're all at the conference, and I go down to the casino. And I'm just walking around, checking things out, how's it going, not doing anything special. And I end up at a craps table, and I don't know anything about craps. I'm just standing there watching them shoot craps. And so the waitress walks by, and she says, "Hey, can I get you anything?" And I said, without a second thought, a shot of tequila and a natural light. Just rolled right out of my mouth, just like it had never stopped rolling. And she said, "Okay, I'll be right back." And before I could say, no, because I didn't really want to say no. Stop. Wait, don't. Okay. And so off she goes, and she comes back with it, and she sits it in front of me, and I drink it, and nothing happens. I said, okay. And so she comes by again, and she says, "Can I get you another?" I said, "Yes, make it a double." And so she goes, and she comes back, and she sits it down, and I drink that, and nothing happens. And so I go upstairs, and I call my husband that night, and we talk, and everything's fine, and I go to bed, and everything's fine. And so my head starts talking to me. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you're not an alcoholic. Maybe you can control it this time. Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe you're healed and you can drink like a normal person now. So I go home with all my thoughts. And within from June to October, I'm drinking a fifth a day. I have been fired from my job for stealing. I come home with my little box of stuff, and my husband has no idea what's going on because I've kept my alcohol at work. Because my husband used to be a narcotics officer, and his parents used to be alcoholics, and we live in the house that he grew up in. So he knows all the good hiding spots in our house. He knows all the good hiding spots in a vehicle. So I can't hide my alcohol at our house. So I hide it at work, under the sink, at the office. So at 10 o'clock on the morning I get fired, I'm already 3 sheets to the wind. And so I go home with my little box of stuff, and I'm crying, and I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess. Yeah, I'm just like hair everywhere, mascara down my face. And I'm walking in like a crazy woman. He's like, "What is going on?" I said, "I got fired." "Why?" "Because I'm drunk." "Huh?" And he was completely blindsided. And he blamed himself. My husband blamed himself because he didn't see it. And I was like, why are you blaming yourself? I am an awesome liar. I am a good liar. I am a professional liar and a cheater and a thief and a gossip and all those character defects that I have were glaring, and every single one of them came back in a very short period of time. And so off I go to rehab again. And so when I came out this time, I got my current sponsor. And before I went to rehab, I would go to meetings drunk. So if you're here tonight and you're drunk, it's okay. Keep coming back. Get a sponsor. Listen to them. I came to many meetings drunk. Doesn't make you a bad person. Just makes you one of us, and you need help. Okay? I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying if you're struggling, reach out for help. Okay? So I would pass out on my sponsor's table, and Pam, being Pam, would just slowly close her book, put it aside, and say, "Why don't you just go home? And we'll pick it up later." So we stayed on step one for like 2 months. Till I went to rehab and came back out, and we started all over again. There are places in my book where I cannot read what I wrote unless I really study it. I leave it that way so I can remember where I came from. So when I share it with my sponsees, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. I know what it says now. So it's like hieroglyphics in here in some spots. But I came back out and I got serious, and I asked Pam if she would sponsor me again, and she said yes, and we started doing it now. It was not easy this time. Yeah, I struggled hard. But I just hung on to her as hard as I could, and she walked me through it. And she went through this book and she read it to me page by page. And I am so grateful for her. She has walked me through these steps and shown me how to live. The first 3 steps we went through pretty quick because I knew I was powerless over alcohol. I knew my life was unmanageable, and I had already come to believe. Ego deflation is so important. I'm not all-knowing. I'm not all-powerful. I am not God. I do not got this. If you ever hear me say I got this, rest assured I do not. I have no clue. She showed me how to be able to let go and let God, how to trust Him. and let Him lead me. And it took a while. It took a while for me to trust her, because I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust anyone. And I didn't think it was in me to trust anyone, especially another woman. When you grow up not being able to trust the people who are supposed to be taking care of you, it's very hard to trust anyone. But she showed me how to do that. And she showed me how to trust other women around me. That's huge. She walked me through the steps. And she taught me how to surrender. And that was hard. And she kept telling me, Kelly, you got to surrender. And I kept saying, I don't know how to do that. She kept saying, just do it. I said, I can't. I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at it. I raised myself. You know, I learned to be independent at a very small age. How to take care of myself and keep myself safe. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to trust God. I don't know how to surrender. And she said, just try. Just try. And so I did. And I started praying for God to help me do that. For the willingness to help me do that. And I trusted Him. And I trusted Pam. And soon I started trusting other people in my home group. And then I started trusting other people outside my home group. Other people in other groups that I knew I could trust. That I knew cared about me. That I knew loved me, no matter what. The steps helped me clean up my life. Helped me clean up my past. Helped me clean up and apologize and do the right thing. And continue to do the right thing. And be able to say, you know, what can I do to make it right? And be able to do that and follow through with it. It taught me how to live without an agenda. Without ulterior motive. Without expectations, although I do still have some. Every once in a while, I'll catch myself. Christy pointed that out to me on the way down here. Do you think maybe it was your expectations? No. I have none. Yes, I do. I do. We're human. I'm not perfect. You know, I'm not perfect, and I have human emotions. You know, we are spiritual beings going through a human experience, as well as human beings going through a spiritual experience. So I had an AA member who's gone from us now that shared that with me one night. I miss her terribly. I have lost 3 close friends in the last month. I lost my mother in February. And it's been hard. But I will tell you this. The first home group I had did not show up for me when my daddy died. When my mother died. My entire home group showed up at the funeral. All of them showed up for me. To the point where my sister looked at my niece and said, I don't know any of these people. And my niece looked at her and said, that's because they're all from Aunt Kelly's home group. Because she's been to my home group with me. None of my other family has been. I am closer to the people in AA than I am to my own family. They know me. You guys know me better than my own family does. You love me for me. You love me for who I am, not what you expect me to be. And I'll be forever grateful for you and for my sponsor and for my home group. And to the God of my understanding for keeping me alive when I didn't know how to keep myself alive, for loving me when I couldn't love myself, and for being here for me no matter what. And that's my time. Thank you.